Saturday Night is a dramatization, I should say, of the opening night, the recording of the first episode live of Saturday Night. Now we all know it as Saturday Night Live, but it actually was originally just titled Saturday Night, and at some point the official title became Saturday Night Live, because the idea was, I think the corporate guys, NBC, weren't necessarily committed to it being live, and that's one of the storylines of it is, whether or not to use a live or taped version of the first episode, which has an interesting resolution. But this movie's about that first one. Now, I have the oral history of Saturday Night Live, which has a lot of the information that I think is in this movie is in that. Just to talk brief about the creators, it was directed by Jason Reitman, who I think is a skilled director. He's the son of Ivan Reitman. Probably one of the more famous movies he directed was Ghostbusters, but he was huge in the 80s, made a lot of major motion pictures in the 80s, and his son followed in his footsteps and is a director now. I believe his first big release they hit was Up in the Air with George Clooney. And so I see him doing this. I'm a huge Saturday Night Live fan. I'm like, I'm going to check it out. There's no question I'm going to go see it. So I went. My daughter was like, she watches SNL with me sometimes, and she was game. I was like, if you want to see this, you can, but you're not going to understand or know a lot of the background of this stuff. She's like, sure, I'll go. And she went cold and had a good time with it. So it doesn't really require any previous knowledge of Saturday Night Live to go watch it. A lot of the stories you may already know. It's interesting when you start watching it. If you know Saturday Night Live, you're like, oh, that's Chevy Chase, or oh, that's the guy playing Lorne Michaels. Lorne Michaels is like the main character. He's the protagonist. And I even kind of knew, I don't remember his name per se until he said it in the movie, but I knew one of the other main characters is a producer, an NBC guy that's involved with that was involved with the production as well, and was kind of work with Lorne on getting it to screen. There's the guy from plays J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man movies, like a bunch of them, like even the different continuities. That guy, he's in it playing Milton Berle, and as kind of an aging TV icon. And one thing I'll say about the movie in terms of the story is that they're not trying to be literally accurate. They try to take the background of how Saturday Night Live came to get made, or came to screen, and fit it into a drama that occurs in the hour and a half before it releases. So in particular, I found a story in the, in the oral history where Lorne remembers going to, or the guy, the actual writer, remembers Lorne finding him in a Borch Belt comedy club out in Long Island and hiring him to be on SNL as a writer. Now in the movie, they put that happens right before the first episode, but of course it didn't, because and he actually, but they took his story and they merged it into the thing, and so suddenly he's actually in a bar in downtown New York, a block away from the theater, and that's where Lorne finds him. So they fit that story in there, but they did it by playing with the reality a little bit. And that's honestly commonplace in movies. You should assume everything in a movie based on a true story is not true unless you have proof otherwise that it's true, because it's just, I've been let down by far too many movies that were based on a true story where the truth had nothing to do with what you saw on screen. This one, at least there was a show. NBC didn't like it very much, and it had a hard time getting to the screen. It was chaotic, and it did get on the air. So that fundamental truth about the movie is true. But it's an entertaining movie. I think that if you have any interest in Saturday Night Live, it's worth checking out, even if the people on the show you don't know about, because they're all the players from the not so ready for primetime players from 1975, year before I was born. So you won't know who they are, but the movie explains kind of basically who they are. It's just kind of cool if you've already seen them on screen, you've watched them on the show, and you see the people playing them. It's kind of interesting. I remember one point, Al Franken was actually a writer, even on the first episode of SNL. That's how long he was involved in SNL. And I remember telling my daughter in the theater, that guy becomes a U.S. Senator. And talking about the thing he was pitching as a sketch for the first episode. It didn't make it, but it was like an idea, so he's pitching it. And I was like, yeah, that guy, got curly hair, crazy guy right there. He'll eventually be a U.S. Senator. So it's cool stuff like that. But I appreciate it. It was definitely a labor of love for them. And you could see it in when them doing it, how much, how important it was to them and how much it meant to them to kind of retell the story of this, what is now kind of establishment, in modern television. So you're a
Mm-hmm.
pretty big fan of SNL too, right, Lawrence?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
certain skits, certain actors. It's kind of, I would say, it's kind of like the kind of the Beatles of TV. It's like it was like this
yeah,
one awesome entity. Like you have people, and it creates a lot of stars. Saying Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, uh, Michael Myers, Eddie Murphy, and a lot of people.
yeah,
Stars came out of Saturday Night Live, and
yeah,
it's kind of interesting to see that they go back and see. Okay, this is kind of the roots. I mean, it's like you're saying, any true story is not true story. It's like it's based on actual events, and because we all know a lot of these movies they kind of dramatize things to fit into Hollywood, storytelling, and make it more dramatic, make it more interesting.
yeah. And the story structure. I mean, it says to be a movie structure.
Mhm.
The biggest
Yeah.
flaw I saw in the movie, it just came
Mhm.
to me right now, is the portrayal of John Belushi. I just thought, I don't know if it was underwritten or if it was the actor, but that was the one that I said that they didn't quite get that. That didn't quite land. He has a little arc.
Mhm.
Several of the characters, Chevy Chase, John Belushi, several of them have kind of small arcs. Garrett Morris, played by a guy whose last name is Morris, but he's not related to him. He has a little arc there. That's probably my favorite individual character. His and Chevy Chase's arcs are my two favorite arcs, but there are a couple of mini arcs, different characters besides Lauren. And they had, but the John Belushi one, which it's that one is noticeably doesn't quite work. It's okay, but it doesn't. I didn't think it quite landed. Didn't quite get what they were going. What they were going for didn't quite work. So I'll just say
Mhm.
that about it in general, but it doesn't ruin the movie or anything. It's just, again, just one of many subplots. But it was the one that stuck out to me as one that didn't quite work. Thanks for watching this clip from Only the Real Movie Podcast. Please like and consider subscribing to Low Key Classic Movies, and look out for the next episode of Only the Real Movie Podcast coming at the end of every month. Check out a full podcast, or maybe one of these clips, or another video from Low Key Classic Movies.